President Biden is set to sign even more executive orders today, and some of his critics say that it seems he's pushing even further to the left than even his moderate base would like. Well, joining us to discuss is Noah Weinrich, the press secretary of the Heritage Action for America. Noah, thanks so much for coming on today's program.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Let's talk about these executive orders and how they might move farther left than you typically expect of a moderate Democrat. If you don't mind, we can take a closer look at how President Biden set to repeal what's known as the Mexico City policy. Explain to our viewers what this would mean for taxpayers as it pertains to abortions.
That's right. So the Mexico City policy was one of President Trump's policies. It was part of his pro-life agenda. It's a common sense rule that essentially says U.S. foreign aid paid for by taxpayers cannot go to non-governmental organizations that are funding or referring abortion. We know it's not healthcare. This isn't a radical rule. It's simply saying that, half of Americans don't want to pay for this. We shouldn't make taxpayers fund abortion overseas. But last week, President Biden repealed that rule, now forcing you, me, all of your viewers to pay taxes which are going to go to abortions overseas, which is simply not acceptable. It's not popular, and it's certainly not uniting the country.
There's also a push from progressives to push President Biden into a no honeymoon campaign to call for universal health care, expanding Obamacare, canceling student debt. So it doesn't just stop with this Mexico City policy when it comes to abortion. It looks like these policies are covering a span of topics here. This idea of influencing your health care as well. Again, that progressive push. Is that how you're reading it?
That's exactly right. These people see Biden as an opportunity to pass their far-left agenda. They're also pushing for a Green New Deal and a $15 minimum wage. And we saw in Biden's first week, he caved to the demands of the left. He put a $15 minimum wage into one of his very first bills sent to Congress. So even though Bernie may have lost the primary, his policies are the ones dictating the current administration. And a lot of these policies, he campaigned on being Scranton Joe, right? But a lot of these policies are not going to help the working class. The Green New Deal, $15 minimum wage, canceling student loan debt, that's going to help the middle and upper class. A $15 minimum wage is not going to affect somebody in D.C. or San Francisco, but it's going to hurt people in middle America. Canceling student debt is really going to help people who have gone to college, who already have that degree and who are already set up well in their careers. It's not going to help the folks who never even had a chance to go to college.
So during the campaign and even before his vice president selection was made, we were taking a closer look at Kamala Harris, now Vice President Kamala Harris. But a YouGov poll at the time had pointed out that she was the most liberal senator in the U.S. Senate. So the fact that now we have moderate, as you say, Scranton Joe paired up with the most liberal senator in the U.S. Senate, does she sort of have an influence on his future policy that we could see throughout his 4 years in office?
That's exactly right. There's a reason people are talking about the Biden-Harris administration. We talked about the Trump administration, and now it's the Biden-Harris administration. She's really in the driver's seat for a lot of the domestic policy. And as you saw in her record in the Senate, she was the most liberal senator. She was over there with Bernie Sanders, sometimes to his left. She was one of the original ones campaigning for Medicare for all, the Green New Deal, etc. So Biden's choice of Kamala was to appease the left. And it shows that he is sort of in debt to the left and that they are the ones really driving the agenda. While Biden has talked about unity, he cast himself as a moderate. His very first policies in office are anything but. And you're going to see that later today when he signs some immigration orders, which rescind a lot of the Trump common sense restrictions on immigration, especially during the pandemic, and advance an open borders agenda that makes us less safe, less prosperous, and less free.
Those immigration policies are set to come in today. We'll be watching those play out. Noah Weinrich, press secretary of the Heritage Action for America, joining us live on the program. Thanks so much for being with us today.
Thank you for having me.